Awaken the light. The cosmos is within you. Remember who you are.
Hello, 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 people. It's Minister Dr. Akila Ka Ma'at, sort of breaking the pattern here, right? Love and lights, Ashe, welcome all. Another Akh Ascension special, which I think I may do more on Saturday and Sunday. But look, love and lights, Ashe, I'll get into me in a minute. I just hope everybody is having a phenomenally warm, satisfying, beautiful, wondrous day. It's Sunday. I guess in America, Sunday is considered the day of rest for some traditions. I'm telling you, I don't think I ever have a day of rest trying to build a business here, but it's okay because at least I'm doing it for me and in an altruistic, pay forward, outreach, I guess help people kind of way. So anyway, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy for anybody who's going to tap into this video today. I'm just really excited that I feel inspired to do a discussion on a two-way line of talking with your ancestors, right? I mean, there's so many people that are interested in figuring out how to communicate with ancestors, right? Folks who have gone on, but that they still want to keep a connection with, and benevolent ancestors that they want to find. It is, when we're talking about Kim metaphysics, Melanin metaphysics, Kim folks, Black folks, and I put up a few videos on the Power Prophet TV that deal with, what they did with this system of, I don't know what you want to call it, the United States of Americans, what they did with the names of Africans that came over, what they did with the drum, which was a real symbol of, it was a communication. It was a communication line long before there was any telegram phone lines around here, particularly in Europe as well. It was used to talk, to inspire, to communicate very important things, ceremonies. The drums were, the rhythm of life, and the ancestors live in the rhythm, right? So that's a video I put up. I talked about spirituality, as it was stripped away from the enslaved. My ancestors, and I'm not claiming blood, although it is in the blood. The melanin is in the blood of all peoples, but I'm talking about Kim peoples, right? So for me, they're all my ancestors, whether they are related through family or not. The way in which they strip the spirituality out of, the actual behavior, ways that they could see the Africans be spiritual. They stopped all of that. None of this stuff went away, right? As I say in these videos. So they took the names, they took the drums, they took the spirituality, and they actually gave the enslaved a jacked up version of the Bible, which took out anything for liberation, any talk of liberation. They kept in there, everything that dealt with staying in servitude, in bondage, and obeying your masters. So there's 4 new videos up. They all come from a long video, a live stream that I did yesterday. that I felt was onerous for people to try to get through. I did put up the timestamps, but this morning when I got up, I decided to chop them up into like 30, 20-minute slices of information to make it easier. So for me, I really believe that Kim Metaphysics, the ancestors are central, right? And a lot of my clients, when I talk to ancestors, hear ancestors, the clips that I, put up across social media about ancestors really garner a lot of attention. And I know there's tons of videos on YouTube and elsewhere that deal with communication with the ancestors, and I'm excited about that. And I don't think we can have enough of those videos because different people communicate this practice differently, and so it may resonate differently through me as it would resonate differently from somebody else. And what I'm saying is that certain ways in which this information, these practices are shared, resonate for different folks who may be seeking this information as opposed to another person discussing it. They may not necessarily sit in that conversation. So I'm just adding my voice to the ocean of understandings and information on the ancestors, because I really sit with the ancestors. I mean, there are times when I am, in a space of just even light meditation. And sometimes I just feel a population of spirits around me, like a crowd around me. I mean, it is that powerful once you have this practice and you are really diligent in maintaining the warmth, the heat, the hotness of that connection, which is through daily practices. So, I remember when I first had that idea or that sense, actually I could see, but I couldn't see these shadows of beings, just a crowd at a concert, just like on my sides. And like many, I'm like, what is that real? Like, am I going crazy? I mean, we can think that when we believe we're tapped in and then you're actually tapped in, it's like, what? No, that can't be so. It was so. It felt so. I sensed so. And so it is. And that was powerful. But many people discount what they might hear, feel, and sense as, being somehow not real, right? I mean, society has us always questioning our intuition and our sense, our knowing, as somehow being flawed and not being right, right? And we take that up. It's like if it's not coming through some power figure, somebody who knows how to do this, then I don't trust what I feel, what I know. And that's problematic because no one has the purview, the complete purview of communicating with the ancestors. Every individual person, even those who are not Black, everybody has the capacity to sit with ancestors, hear them, talk with them, and gain insights from that interaction. Okay, and I just want to explain the little widget I have on the side, Melanin Metaphysics resources, because that's the community page on the website. And I'm sorry to digress real quick, but folks will be saying, what is that? The Join the Temple is on that page. And so I'm just having, look, it's a new toy in Restream, so I'm using it, okay? And I do have some notes. I'm not going to read today from my notes because I just get sick of that. But I understand the struggle of of desiring to communicate with, and then the struggle with actually understanding or knowing, sensing that they are actually speaking with you. And like I'm going to say again and again and again, this all takes daily practice. Okay, you wouldn't like have a build a relationship with a friend by never having a conversation with that friend and only expect that friend to talk to you when you need it or something. No, to have a friend, you tend to the relationship. And that's the same way we need to think about our relationship with our ancestors. Okay. And so if you're here with me today, if you're here with me later, I ask you to please like, subscribe, and hit notifications. I have said it over and over again. This allows these live streams to go into YouTube's algorithm. I have no idea. I have no idea how that works as far as being in the algorithm, but this is what they say you should say. And I'm just doing a check on YouTube to see how clear my video is, and it is crystal clear. So I am Minister Dr. Akila Ka Ma'at, and today we're talking about the two-way line, talking with your ancestors, okay? And so, yes, I'm going to put on my little glasses here when I need to. But today, you're going to actually learn how to, two things, right? You're going to learn how to speak with and hear from your ancestors. It's a two-way line, all right? And so I just really want to get into it. It's a reciprocal relationship, a bi-directional relationship, okay? And for those of you who do not know, my PhD is in communication, arts, and science, fundamentally, although I rolled that into science and research and all the good stuff. But that is an area of expertise of mine. And so, additionally, communicating with the ancestors is key to the 9 bodies of light, the Akh Ascension, because the Ka, the bloodline, is really in the first gate of Ka. And we covered that last week. And so that's really, where the interest I saw came from when I was talking about the ancestors. But the bloodline, the ancestors in the 9 bodies of light, the Akh Ascension, is very key. It's the first gate, meaning that to really do the work of Akh Ascension, the capacity to talk with and hear from your ancestors is essential to that journey, because we do not walk alone. And the thing that many of us have ascribed to is this idea of what is just rampant in America is this, I pull myself up by my bootstraps. I know in my research, I've really come to understand you got to have boots to have bootstraps. And a lot of people don't even have boots. But the idea of like, you're responsible for yourself. You're an individual entity. You got to make your way. And that is such a misnomer, such a lie, something that does such damage to individuals. And in particularly, I believe, Black folks, because that's not who we are. We are collectivists at heart. Collectivist meaning communal, right? And that's where Ubuntu comes in. I am because we are. We are because I am. Everyone, it's a puzzle piece where we all stick together. And that speaks to non-locality theory, which is tied with, we're all nodes in the field, but we are connected, right? And that's quantum entanglement. We are all entangled. Now, maybe ancient African spirituality did not talk about quantum entanglement, but quantum entanglement is a scientific explanation of an ancient African understanding that has been around for centuries. Ancient Africans understood communication with and interaction with ancestors was critically important. Ancestor worship, ancestor veneration, honoring the ancestors was a very central part of Kim DNA, Black DNA. And like I just want to iterate, uh, the United States of Americans does not sit in that ideology. The United States is not a collectivist society; it is an individualistic society. Hence, you see why. I'm gonna just say that's why everything's crazy around here. Everybody's out for themselves, their families. That's all that matters, right? It's insane. I remember, I'm just thinking about the time when living in apartment buildings, even living in townhomes, right? I mean, I come out my apartment, I say hi to somebody or my townhome, and there is no community feel whatsoever. When I was in New York back in the day, people wouldn't even speak to you back. And I'm just like, hey, we live in the same house. A mansion with many rooms, right? Isn't that what they say about heaven? That's heaven on earth, a mansion with many rooms. But I'm just saying, American society is so individualistic. It is no wonder so many Kim people are so like separated from ancestors, honoring your ancestors as what look. And sometimes the folks who love us, like build that into us. I remember when my mother got sick, she had cancer. It was in remission for 10 years. And all of a sudden, I was living in California and I just heard her keep coughing on the phone. Sometimes she couldn't stop coughing. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? Right? Come to find out, the cancer that my mother had, breast cancer, had metastasized in her chest. And she told me, don't come home because of me. What? Don't come home because of me. Her main worry was that I would blame her for whatever that meant for my life, which I thought was asinine, which I came home anyway, because it's just, I have this connection like that. Some folks, they don't do it, you know? But I came home, and yeah, I was glad I came home. She only had 2 more years to live. And I was there. She died in my arms in the hospital. I mean, I would have beat myself up if I wasn't there, right? So, so my mom was trying to underscore and assert the idea of individualism to me in such a way that she did not want me to be there with her when she was sick. So it's not that the United States just bores this idea into our head that we are separate, we are solo. I mean, it does. That's why the parents are doing it. And my mom was part Lenape Indian, right? She was Native American. And so, there was a collectivist culture. I saw her venerate her ancestors. We went to the graveyards in New Jersey, and she would do what she do. That's how I know spiritual traditions. I know how to read tarot and just having intuitive downloads and talk to my spirit guides and sage. I mean, she was completely into collectivism. I went over my aunt's house, and gosh, she took me to, very much matriarchal type of system. So she understood this, but maybe didn't know how much she had at a certain time of my life ingrained it within me. But anyway, so I'm just, sort of more or less just sort of setting the scene about why ancestors for many Kim folks just don't resonate anymore. They're here, they're gone, but there are a large swath of Kim folks who believe in ancestors, want to have a relationship with ancestors, but don't know how. And this is how, and that's why this live stream is important. And that's why I just want to share some of these insights with you. And so, people think that, I don't know what they think, but ancestors are always present. They're always present. There's not a moment when they're not present. When we're not communicating with them or honoring them in such a way, in some of these ways I'm going to share with you, the line can go quiet where you don't feel they're around, but they are always, always, always here. And so many people think, well, how come other people hear them more clearly than I hear, right? And many times that's because they practice, right? And so, I already told you about the melanin metaphysics. So I'm going to get into the first part of this, okay? How to hear from your ancestors, okay? And I'm going to go back out of here. I'm going to talk about first how to hear from your ancestors, okay? And many of these strategies will overlap with other folks, but stillness. Stillness is the first way in which you can begin to open your senses up in such a way that you can connect with your ancestors. And I want to stop saying here, because people think that the ancestors is going to say, hey, how you doing? Or there's going to be some obvious thing you're going to know that they're talking to you. It doesn't work like that. But the thing about it is, and I talk about the dark awake, right? Which gives way to the black light. So the dark awake is, when you unfold into Kim, right? And that dark awake meditation is for you to sit in your intuition, discover your intuition, understand how it speaks to you. But that gives way to the black light. And the black light is, you practice hearing your intuition. That is really an important space that ancestors talk to us through our intuition. But the black light opens up as you're sitting in stillness. The black light, and you're unfolded into Kim completely. You're not like trying to search Kim, the black behind your eyelids, but what you're doing is you are intently attending to it. Okay, so complete stillness. And it's not about necessarily fighting with your thoughts to stop. I talked about meditation and the idea of the current on top of the ocean as opposed to being submerged. But it is important that in stillness, you can get a subtle signal. A subtle signal. And I'm going to tell you from my own experience, from being in stillness, is that I have seen people, scenes, images or symbols as I am sitting in the black light, right? So I'm going to tell you, at first, when I started a long time ago doing this, it was a little disconcerting to be in the stillness and begin to see these images. And I would pull back. I mean, it would be jarring, and it would stop, because either I would pull back because it was scary, or I would try to look at it, like try to make it become visible to me, like on TV or something, right? I wanted to see what it was. So I'd start trying to capture it. And so it's not necessarily about capturing it or seeing it. When you are in the dark and your mind is not full of noise and you begin to see something, you let it be. Just let it be. Let it evolve without you trying to, oh, that's it, right? I see something. No. That's going to make it go away. You just want to, all I can say is you want to let it evolve. You want to let it be like a leaf is on a tree, right? The tree is not trying to I don't know if this is a good metaphor, but the tree is not trying to capture the leaf to say, oh, it's a leaf here. Oh, I got a new leaf. No, it just is. It forms the way it's forming. And that, in essence, is what happens when you're in the dark awake, the black light of the dark awake. So you letting the images, whatever you're seeing, evolve. Just let them evolve the way they are, let them be. And at that same time, your intuition is making sense. Your knowing is making sense. Now, I'm not saying that in that image or that thing you may be seeing, you're going to see a message in there or you're going to hear somebody talking. No. Perhaps, but it could happen. I'm not saying no, it's not going to happen. That's not what you're looking for. Okay. What happens is that you will get a knowing. Sometimes the knowing will come with the image. Sometimes the knowing will come after you've finished and you always write down what you see. And then you just free write and let the knowing come out, especially if you have not yet understood how your intuition speaks to you. And I'm going to talk about, capturing the message in some way. But this is just how to hear from them. So the first one is sitting in silence. My strategy is the dark awake, unfolding into the blackness behind your eyelids, attending to that, and letting what's going to be there is what is going to be there, And let me just look and see something right here, because part of that is actually having an intent of communicating with them. And I'll talk about that in a minute, how to speak with them. So the strategy is sit in stillness, let whatever's unfolding behind you unfold, right? This could also be body signals, right? Something happening in your body, okay? And I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. Yeah. Second, the second strategy is your dreams, right? Dreams are a place that your ancestors will visit you continually. And some people can't remember their dreams. I can understand that. Medications can sometimes stop your dreams. I mean, when I was on, let me say, that's not even true. But there's certain medications I have taken where my dreams just stopped. And that was a real problem for me. And I pulled back a lot of whatever that was, stopped completely, so that my dreams could come back, because I purposefully exist in my dreams, meaning that I understand what is happening in the dream world. And so I am attuned. Even if it's a dream, I am attuned to the dream. Some people may just dream and it just happens. And it's just happening, which is fine. But there are others who dream and they understand themselves as an active participant in that dream. Okay? And so it is a meeting place for the divine to communicate with you, for the spirit guides to communicate with you, and for your ancestors who can be also spirit guides to communicate with you, and also for your spirit animal to communicate with you. All right. So you need to pay attention to the dreams, particularly the vivid ones. Okay. And so I remember, I'm just going to share a little bit about how some of my dreams come to me. My mom Excuse me, my nose is, every time I start talking, I should have tissues. My mom comes to me in my dreams, right? She never ever talks. She's just a being, right? A person. I see her. I know she's there. And I've had several dreams of her, but this one in particular was very interesting. And she's always communicating with me something in the dream, right? And so, for instance, she came to me in a dream. There was a lot of stuff. I'm not going to tell you the whole dream, but she was so excited to introduce me to two divine beings. These beings were not of this earth. Somebody would say they were aliens, to use another terminology. I remember them distinctly. I remember what they looked like. And one, and she was, wanting me to meet them like frantically, like, come on, come on, come on. And so I was standing there, and it seemed like there was a divine masculine and a divine feminine celestial being there, right? And so one touched me, touched my left breast, and a whole bunch, 7 circles, 7 orbs came into my breast. And at first it was scary. I was thinking, that is that a sign that I'm going to get breast cancer? But my mother was introducing me to these divine beings because she wanted me to understand my assignment on this earth before it was too late. Like, I had a wonderful mom. I don't think she lived her divine assignment the way that she knew she was supposed to after she passed. A lot of things come to light after we go back and stitch ourselves, our conscious, back into the cosmos, right? We understand a lot about our lives and others' lives as they exist in corporal form. And I think that was the hurriedness. So that was a very vivid, and I write all my dreams down. I did a live stream on this. I write them all down. If I wake up in the middle of the night, people say have the journal. For me, I just pull my phone out and I just put it in my text messages, because for me, I will forget. The dream may go away quickly. So I'm putting in every detail I can remember. And so that was one dream, giving me my assignment. Um, and and the rest is history. But that was her reaching out to me in my dream, pulling me to meet these divine celestial beings, the cosmos, because they are the cosmos, right? The divine intelligence coming into my dream. So my mom, she never talks in my dreams, but, and the divine beings did not say anything either. They just touched me and put the 7 orbs in my chest. And that's interesting because I'm a numerologist. So I'm going to talk more about these signs and synchronicities, right? Because I don't want to get everything caught up. But dreams. And I've had other dreams that have been my ancestors trying to communicate or communicating something with me. It's just, how do we allow our intuition to tell us? It's like sometimes we need to have, somebody else, but no, the ancestors know you are quite capable of discerning the messages for yourself. And when you go to somebody, and give them complete purview over that dream, and you just say, hey, yeah, you figure it out, then you miss the opportunity to interact with your ancestors. And so the third way your ancestors communicate with you is through signs and synchronicity. So there's signs in the dreams, right? That I just talked about, the 7, the orbs, all that stuff is important. The celestial beings. After my mother introduced me, She lay down on the ground and proceeded to die again, this time more convulsively. It was just very interesting. And so signs and synchronicities. And so in this way, I'm going to be very concrete here. The ancestors will speak to you in the language of the ordinary world. Okay. This could be numbers, right? Um, it could be a, I'm not going to, yeah, it could be um, numbers. It could be seeing an insect, an animal. Um, it could be uh, so many things. And I wrote down some examples that I can't even read my handwriting now. Let me put my glasses on. Um, oh, okay. So one example that I have that was very, and I wanted to get the good examples. One example that I have that was really palpable. My father passed, and I'm keeping this to the people in my immediate family. Although I did share in meditation, I felt a crowd of ancestors, which was my family and then some around me. But my father passed. I did not go to his funeral because I just have an issue with these strange rites. I don't know. And then the performance and pretense that goes on at these events. I want to grieve my father. It was interesting because um, after, I think it was before the funeral, after my father died, um, and I was home. My nephew called me on the phone. No, they called me. I called my nephew. I was a mess for a minute. And like 3 or 4 days later, I happened to be scrolling through YouTube on my television, right? And this thing comes up and says, an urgent message from your father. And, I have certain subscriptions, things that come up. This person I've never seen before in my feed. But all of a sudden, this person was there, came into my observation and said an urgent message from your father. And she was speaking about a father who had passed. And so, because I understand the ways in which our ancestors speak to us, I just said, what is this? And I clicked on it. And she was speaking a little, just kind of crazy, like, well, this came down on me. And at first I was going to turn it off because she sounded like she knew what she was talking about. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then she just started to share the message. And when I say that this message reflected the relationship that me and my father had and didn't have, and the way he lived his life, I'd be lying if I said it didn't. It was powerful. Signs. Now, I could have nixed that off with just me being grieving and, like, that's just me grieving, right? That don't make no sense. But the things that she said, the downloads that she was getting, and she was in the process. It wasn't like she filmed this and then put it up. No, she was doing the downloads as she was giving the message. So it wasn't recorded and then put up there. It was live, right? And one of the things well, there were several things that made me know that it was my father communicating with me from beyond, right? One of the things, my father was a Jehovah's Witness, right? And I don't know how many of you know about Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't believe that there's anything that happens when you die. You're just out. That's it. You're dead. There's no energy exchange with the universe. There's nothing. Like, if you come back, you're an evil spirit. There's something evil, right? But there's nothing. And so the message that I had, that she said to the, and I saved the video. The message that she said that she was being given was, I didn't know. I didn't know about this, like about the other side. My father always thought there was nothing over there, even though his wife was a psychic, right? A hoodoo woman, Geechee. He says, I didn't know. I just didn't know. Like in essence, and I can't remember everything she said because I didn't remember the video verbatim, but in essence, it was like I had spent my whole life believing there was nothing after death. And now I know that there is something. And in a way, he was sort of excited about this knowledge. And I have to say that my father may have been the most highly intuitive person that there was. And it's a shame that he gave his life and wanted me and the whole family to give their life to a cult that denied any of that extrasensory perception, that intuition, that knowing. I mean, for goodness sake, he had a mole right where we think our third eye is. But that video, if I had not have been warm in my connection with ancestors, I'm warm meaning if I had not already practiced being with my ancestors, I would not have stopped on that message. And yes, I was grieving, but this message was dead on for our relationship. He apologized for not being there at the time I needed him the most. And the way he said it was so specific to a time in my life where we just diverged completely and never really came back. At a very young age, I might have been 13, and our relationship was over at a very key time in my life, right? So this is signs. And that's a synchronicity too, because it came up right a few days after he passed. So that's a synchronicity as well. And so, am I crazy? That's what people will say. Am I crazy? Legit question. I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you think I might be crazy if you are still teetering on the edge of this being a bunch of BS, right? I'm going to get to that in a minute when it comes to the body. What else did I have down there? Other signs. I remember when I moved to Fairfax, Virginia, and I went outside when I first got there. It was like katydids, I think is what they're called. They make a lot of noise. And I was sitting at my table outside on the balcony, and this cicada broke its neck to climb up an iron chair, which it kept falling off of. It was right in front of my face. It crawled up the chair, up the leg, over the seat, came to the edge because the chair was facing me, and turned to the side because you know they got their eyeballs over here. And the katydid or cicada just sat there, staring at me. I knew that was an enslaved spirit. I knew. Somebody would say, well, katydid symbolized that, this and that. The katydid was giving me a warning that I neglected to follow, right? The katydid was warning me. And then there were several other synchronicities that happened in Fairfax. Even though it was a very wonderful time for spiritual connectedness, just think of all the souls, all the spirits that are buried there from slavery, All of the ancestral practices. I mean, the first slave ship came there 1619. So all of the ancient African traditions are like in the blood, in the soil. It was a very palpable spiritual place for me. But I was given several warnings to get out. And eventually I listened because then dreams started to happen. And it wasn't from ancestors, it was from the divine, right? It was from the divine. Every night I was dreaming I was getting killed, literally shot at, killed. Every night, running away from monsters. But you might see a number, right? You might see numbers. You might see a number that could be their number as another sign, right? Synchronicities. You wake up in the middle of the night, you look at the clock, and you see, you might see 11:14. 11:15. That's a birthday, right? You could see a synchronicity like that. Another synchronicity or sign could be you're talking to somebody and the person will say in a phrase exactly the way an ancestor would say it. But we don't hear that, right? We don't listen to it. Or we say, oh man, you said this like my mom. You sound just like that, my mom. My uncle say that all the time. The idea is that phrase being said is not to just, oh, my uncle said that too. No, what was said right before and what was said right after, right? You got to look at the context a little bit. And then what did you feel inside when it was said, right? How did your body respond to that saying? And so many of us are not mindful enough to sit in that as far as to discern what you were feeling the moment that thing was said. But that's very important, right? So what's before that phrase, was after that phrase, and what did my body feel like, right? There's so many different signs. I can't even think of them all. So numbers, right? Signs, they could be anywhere. TV, out in your home, outside your house. It could be insects communicating with you. I had another encounter with a fox in Virginia. I was walking down the alley behind my townhome, and there was a fox sitting in the middle of the alley, the street, sitting there staring at me. An ancestor. For me, these are enslaved. I had a knowing these are enslaved ancestors inhabiting these entities. And they are giving me warnings, right? You have to have the download. I was very surprised to see the fox. I kept walking. The fox didn't move. It was just sitting there like a dog would have, Well, a dog might have run up and bit me. I mean, that fox could have too. And so I'm so stupid. I'm dipping down, hiding behind the phone, the pole, the light pole, like the fox can't see me, trying to discern what was happening, right? So then I had to remember, what was I thinking before I started seeing? What seeing that fox made me feel in my body, and what happened after, right? Sometimes you won't have all those things clearly. That's why sometimes after you have this synchronicity or the sign, you just get quiet for a minute to see if you can have a knowing, right? To have a knowing about why that happened, why it is, why you saw that, why you felt that. And again, that's developing your intuition. I'm going to go into the fourth way that you can hear them, and that is the body, as I've mentioned before. Excuse me. And I didn't want to really get into the body because the brain, the dreams are of the body. But some people say, no, did you actually travel somewhere, right? But the body is another way you can hear your ancestors. I recall for a long time after my mother passed, because in essence, I felt, because I was holding her when she passed, that her energy came into me. I believed that. I still believe it. And this is where somebody would say, Minister, you crazy. And it's okay, because a lot of people don't exist in the realm of other knowing. I could have a conversation with my mother, and I could hear her voice talk back to me on the inside. I remember when I had to move to Japan for a job. I was there for a long time. And I felt alone. And my mother was there with me, would give me advice. I would ask her for advice. I would talk to her about what's happening, and she would talk back to me. This went on for a very long time. It was like it happened, it seemed, because I needed her to still be with me, and thus she was. Not because I willed it, but because she was there, right? Nowadays, it's not so palpable, the voice, because the time has passed, right? And so in my body, I would hear her voice. So the fourth is the body. And it's not so much about the mind as it is about the body. I knew she was here. All right. Other ways that you could sense that and I'm looking at my notes. I should pull them up to my face. Is you could have goosebumps. The hair raises on your arm and it gets bumpy. You could feel an overwhelming warmth sweep through you if you know you're not perimenopausal or menopausal going through heat flashes, right? Um, um, you could also, some other ways, they come to your, I can't remember what I wrote down here. I know sometimes olfactory senses, like there are times when I can smell the coffee from the kitchen in my home where I grew up. My parents were avid coffee drinkers. My mom was the best coffee maker on the face of this planet. I can smell coffee brewing, cooking. I can smell the coffee my mother made. That's how I know that she is here. I can hear auditory. I can hear things. A bang, a movement. This scares some people, and I can see why that would be scary. This is sometimes how ancestors make themselves known. Okay. You can also feel a touch. You can feel maybe a blanket move slightly. And you're like, what is that? The body, the Kim, it's an antenna, right? The body will pick up these things before any other sense, any other seeing, watching social media, seeing something that resonates, seeing a bug. And I guess that's visual, right? So the body's involved in all of this stuff. But there are many things that occur with the body, especially touch. A touch. You could also get a gut feeling, scared, happy, joy for no reason, especially if you're not sitting in the spirit, meditating, being in divine intelligence. you feel joy. That's also a sign in your gut. Sometimes you can get a pain that you know you should not have, but a pain that speaks to the pain of a past relative, right? And it'll go away, but you'll feel it in the place that they felt it, or that you know they had a pain in that area. So the body will definitely pick up these signals. And if you are celebrating, sitting in, honoring, understanding your Kim as transmission, conductor, receiver, that heightens the capacity to tap into your ancestors in many ways. Okay? Sometimes you'll see a door creak open. These are scary things for some people. But they could be signals. I recall one time I was in Fairfax and I was doing mother tongue ritual. And through the mother tongue, it's meditative. I'm not going to tell you everything that happened, but I took on an ancestral spirit. It was an old woman. Okay. I felt the old woman. I felt crinkled up. And then through the mother tongue, the old woman began to speak to me. And I don't know what was going on in Virginia, but the old lady was like, and she said it like she was a slave. She was like, leave and don't ever come back. Don't look back. Just go. You got your whole life ahead of you, or something like that. But it was like old school language. Get out of here. Don't look back. Don't ever come back this way. I mean, I was saying this. I was crying profusely. It was as if I was reliving her experience with someone running away. Okay. And yes, I am a medium, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But that was powerful. And yes, I may have been being engaged in a scene that occurred in her life. It was another warning to me to leave. And in hindsight, like many of us, I did not listen until I had hit a wall that I was just broken down, right? So I had to leave. Go figure. Another way to communicate with your ancestors is through a trained intuitive, right? Someone to do this, okay? And I mean, as a intuitive psychic advisor, there have been many times where I was called upon to help a client speak with their ancestors or to channel a particular person. Sometimes I'll just be with someone, speaking with them, and all of a sudden I'm overtaken by a spirit that they know. And so when I'm reading and an ancestor wants to communicate with a client, all the cards will come up in reverse, upside down, all of them. That's when I know to ask the client, I have to say, something's happening here. And I think someone who has passed wants to communicate with you. Has anyone died recently that you know of? Did you have a really tight, loving relationship with someone who passed? So I ask these questions, and they're like, why are you asking me? Because all of the cards are coming out in reverse. And when that happens, the spirit is seeking to speak to you through me, right? So a trained intuitive can do this work. I remember one time I was on the phone with a client, and she was asking me some question, and I had just a just came over me. I started crying. And the cards, I started reading the cards. Come to find out what I was telling this woman, it was her sister. I didn't have to ask. She knew what was happening by the things that I was saying. I didn't even know her sister had passed. So a trained intuitive can do this work. But it's always good, and I always encourage my clients to be on your own. Get in a relationship with your ancestors or with someone who has passed. You don't always need an intuitive or medium or channeler to do this work. It takes practice, though, and people don't want to wait. But that's the ultimate goal, is for the seeker to figure out how, well, to learn how to do this on their own. And so I'm going to talk real quickly about how to speak, because how you hear from them is contingent in many ways on how you speak to them. And so there's a few strategies. Talk to them directly. Like when I was saying, when you're meditating or you're being quiet in stillness and you want to call on, your loving relationship with your grandma. Grandma, I need your advice. I want to buy a car and I'm not sure if I should do it now. People say, what are you going to ask somebody that question for? Well, because you can't. You can ask your ancestors anything. They know a lot more than we know in this corporal form, because they see all. And once you understand about your Kim, your melanin, you will begin to see all, right? Guided by your ancestors. It won't be a need to be asking them questions. You'll be tapped in so that you know. All right. Ask for their advice. Thank them if you know that they gave you information. And so I do this with my altar. My altar does a lot of things. I do rituals on there. I have an ancestral, a space. Well, the whole altar is an ancestral altar. I mean, everything is on there, but it's a space for ritual too, offerings and the like. But, part of this is having this altar, giving offerings daily. You wake up, you give some food to your ancestors, whatever that may be. I do blueberries, oranges. Sometimes I'll give them spaghetti, fried fish, macaroni and cheese, sweet potatoes, whatever I'm eating. And I'll pour whiskey. My ancestors love whiskey. So I'll pour a little thing of whiskey. I always have a glass of water, because not only do ancestors like water, but the water is key for containing spirits that want to do you harm, right? I light a candle, colors up to you, unless you're doing a specific ritual, and burn incense, maybe not all at the same time, but I always have a candle burning when I'm in conversation, because the flame channels spirits. All right. And if you are tapped in, you can look into that candle sometime and actually see the figure of the person you're talking to. So I bring the food. I got my little plate of food or a little piece of something. I have my little drink. It could be some of the whiskey too. It could be something else. And I sit there and I talk about what's going on in my life. I'll talk to all my ancestors, because I got many of them on my table, right? I have a plant that they have inhabited. They're all there, and I will have a conversation. If I want to speak to one, I'll just talk to one in particular. Okay? And, I do want to be clear about something. And I think it's important to note, like, once you open the door, you've got to be clear about what you're calling into your space, right? Because there are some entities that want to come in that don't want to do good for you. They're not benevolent, right? And you really have to know the difference. And so, a benevolent spirit, you will feel peace. You will feel good. You will feel comfort. You will sense generosity. You will sense care and compassion. You will never feel frightened. So, if you're not feeling good and you begin to feel frightened, particularly after you have started this practice, it could be something else trying to come in to you. What I say is, this is, I was a holy roller. I say, I rebuke you, spirit. You have nothing to offer me. Leave here immediately and let it go. Don't go crazy. Don't start running around like some maniac. Oh my God, oh my God. Speak your peace, lay it down, and keep it stepping. And the thing about these spirits that are not there, you have to really invite them in for them to do damage, for them to begin to do chaos, right? Like the poltergeist and the poltergeist, right? Just to do all kind of things, because they will come in and start to do things. Like when you start hearing knocking, doors opening and closing, but you feel scared and you know that you have only been calling in benevolent spirits. Cleanse your house. People say use sage. There's all this debate about sage opening the door to evil spirits. If that's what you believe, then use a Palo Santo stick. Use some frankincense, some myrrh. Burn it. Go through every corner in your house and cleanse. I should have said this at the rip about calling in benevolent spirits. You don't just call in spirits, because you never know what you're going to get. Unless you're doing a ritual where you are tapping a certain spirit that you know can be a trip, you do that in a very cautious way, and you have to be skilled in doing those rituals. So if you're doing this work and you just feel frightened all of a sudden, something else is there. So don't let that scare you. There are many people who won't attempt to do any of this tapping into ancestors because of that fear, right? And it's a shame, because there are so many ways just to make sure that that doesn't happen. Again, the water. You clear your space with the incense. You could do that even before. You speak the name of the entity, the ancestor you want to come to you. You claim, I only want benevolent ancestors, spirits in this space, right? You have to state what it is exactly that you want. And again, if you all of a sudden feel a sense of fear, sometimes like a cold fear, like I can't explain it. It's like a frosty, a cold fear. That is a sign an entity has entered into your space. You need to rebuke that entity in whatever way you do. Some people rebuke in the name of Jesus. I really don't know how effective that is, but I do use the word rebuke and do what I do. I said it earlier. I did not call you in here. You are not welcome in this space. Leave now. Sometimes I say it 3 times, because 3 times it's real, right? Sometimes I have to say it once and it happens. Some spirits are stronger than others, but this is all more sophisticated and more experienced type of being with the ancestors, and you have to discern. And I'm not scared. Like, I can feel the cold, but I don't get scared. I just understand what's happening, and I nip that in the bud real quick and in a hurry. Okay? So you want to sit with your ancestors. If you're concerned about other spirits coming in that you don't want, call the ancestor you want to speak to as you're at your altar. Or if you're in the dark awake, in the black light, you want to just, I want I want Aunt B, right? Aunt B, I got a question for you. You focus your intent on communication with Aunt B and that question you may have for Aunt B. And don't forget, sometimes pictures work on the altar. Sometimes we don't always have pictures. Something that reminds you of them, put them on the altar, right? I keep the obituaries. Like I said, I have a hoodoo doll, right? Um, and I created it. It's a vase, and inside, and it has an ornament that I love, like a Christmas tree ornament. Look, a hoodoo doll is a hoodoo doll, right? And so inside, it has just all of my family's obituaries in there. Um, and so, yes, I sit with those who've gone on. I have not a fascination with the dead, but a relationship. Um, I am drawn to be with people as they are doing their last exhale, feeling the life. Uh, um, I could be a good hospice person at the end of life. I probably should get some training in that. Um, but yeah, you don't have to be like me. I've always been fascinated with that side of life. Um, Always remember though, you want benevolent spirits. If you're just starting this practice, call on who you know loves you. Okay, that's very important. And it doesn't have to be some huge ritual, right? Um, I don't have time. I don't have time. Look, if you don't have time and you're running, but you want to just touch base, you know, um, just start talking to them. You don't have to do anything. No dark wig, none of this, none of that. Just start talking to whoever you want to talk to. The idea is to keep the line warm. And if you want to speak to them and interact with them in your dreams, you make sure that you say some things so that you can be cognizant when you go to sleep. Like, for instance, you want to set an intention. You could say something like, um, tonight I'm open to Aunt B. Tonight I'm open to Daddy, like my father. Come, come and meet me, right? Sort of like astral projection. You can have an intent that you want to go somewhere, you know, and the Kim will facilitate it, right? The Melanin will facilitate that journey, right? And so you want to say it in your bed before you go to sleep. Um, Grandma, you know, um, Grandma, I'm open to you. Meet me tonight, and let it go. You don't have to be half awake. You know, sometimes I could be in a semi wake state, like I'm not asleep, but I could be in between realms. And that's when those interactions are most in between the waking realm and the sleep realm. That's where visions, the dreams makes, that's where the dreams come in. Even though you are dreaming that intention, visions can come in that in between state. There's just so many different spaces of interacting with spirits, with your ancestors. Um, and where was I at? I think that's it. The main thing, and I dropped a lot of those strategies. The main thing, though, is to remember it's a relationship, not a transaction. You don't just go when you need something, right? Because how are you going to discern how they're sharing the information with you if you're not doing this in practice and keeping the relationship warm? You have to keep the relationship warm, which means you have to practice. And you don't have to do it every day. Maybe every Sunday you make time to sit down with your ancestors in whatever way you want to do that. Maybe it's every Monday and Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Maybe it's in the evening before you go to bed. Maybe it's in the morning, right? You just figure out when it's best. This is not a test. This is not something that needs to be hard. No huge ritual. Just figure out what works best for you. And always remember about ensuring the benevolent spirits are coming, as opposed to just opening yourself up to any spirit that wants to come. All right. That could be the danger. So I think that's it. That's all I really wanted to talk about, was communicating with the spirits. You know, because it is such a part of the Akh Ascension, right? It is such a part of sitting in your Kim, in your blackness, in Melanin Metaphysics. I mean, from my perspective and the way I approach Melanin Metaphysics, I mean, Kim folks are a walking ancestral antenna, right? And if we are not consciously understanding the power of our Kim, our channel is going to be dim a little bit. But once you understand who you are and understand your identity as a Kim person, the power that Kim offers, that is when things begin to just take shape in such a way you will be astounded. And so if you're here this whole time, please like, subscribe, and hit notifications. But I do want to encourage anybody who wants to know more about how to talk with, hear from ancestors. You know, this is it right here. This is Melanin Metaphysics resource page. I'm talking about the little widget over here. Join the temple to get more specific information. I gave you strategies, but there are other bits and pieces that I have not provided, not just because I'm trying to hold them back, but because they are more in-depth discussions that I prefer to have in private. And yes, my cat is on the table demanding to be fed. So, oh, see that? So I'm gonna let y'all go. Who's ever here? Thank you, my friends, for being. It says fiends. Let me take that off. Thank you, my fiends. Thank you, my friends, for being here. I appreciate you. And I hope this video is helpful to you. If you need more information, please do not hesitate to email me and or join the temple. I'm there in the temple. I'm there in the email, right? It's all in my link in bio. You can get a hold of me that way. All right. Y'all have a blessed day. Thank you. Peace out.